It's the Chris Michaels Show. Yes, video. We're going to see if I turn down the audio slightly, and so I don't have a hot mic. Maybe that will change things, but you never know. I also heard that, there is some lisping going on, and I naturally said, well, maybe I'll just do the whole show like this with a nice lisp. So it sounds like steam escaping every time I say an S or a C that sounds like an S. So we'll try to plow through this. Otherwise, the next option is to use a different style of recording using iMovie instead of trying to use StreamYard for anything. And who knows, maybe I will just never do video ever again, and which is a distinct possibility. So over in France, a lot going on there. A hospital has said that they have accepted an unnamed 24-year-old man into the emergency room in Toulouse late Saturday night in a state of extreme discomfort. And what did they discover? Well, oddly enough, they discovered a man had an 8-inch live artillery shell from World War I, so going all the way back to 1914 and 1918, shoved up his rectum, and he couldn't figure out how to discharge the shell without it going off. Yes, so can you get... I mean, what... Can you get any dumber? Can you get any dumber than this? Yes, you are. Okay, sorry. I'm not lying to you. This comes from the New York Compost or many other media outlets. I think the first time this was reported was in the Daily Mail. And he, like I said, the poor fellow describes himself as in a state of extreme discomfort. Yes, oddly enough. I mean, all right, so let's do something else. Okay, so if you're finding an artillery shell, an 8-inch artillery shell, over 100 years old, it's probably not clean. Okay, it's not fresh off the factory floor. Okay, so it's probably got all kinds of gunk and mud and crusties all over it. So how did you do this? Okay. Oh, so we all have to be accepting of our vices, of each other's kicks. So we hope a speedy recovery for this young man. With, I'm sorry, I can't do this. What would possess anybody to shove a 100-year-old artillery shell up your rectum? I mean, maybe it's a cheap thrill. I'm just perplexed by all of this. And I don't even know. Okay, let's get serious for a moment. This is almost as bad. When I read the COVID article about women having a distinct ant flow problem. And I had a serious case of the giggles. I mean, I guess this is the male version of the ant flow problem. Okay, so Donald Trump decides to come out hot on the heels of the Epstein file release, right? And says that India has now said that they are no longer going to purchase Russian energy and Russian oil directly or indirectly. But there was absolute silence coming from the Indian subcontinent. And Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin spokesperson, said, so far, we haven't heard any statements from New Delhi on this matter. And we've received no official confirmation from India about this. So there you go. How is this even possible that we have this monumental announcement coming from Donald Trump, and then India is utterly silenced, and Putin is basically saying, "News to me. I haven't heard anything about this." So there you go. It is not something that is going to be pronounced very, very often. And see, I was distracted. You could tell I was distracted. No, I was not thinking about an 8-inch artillery shell of someone's rectum. The 4-footed program observer is making some very weird noises and gestures, and I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to do. So that's all the beauty of one take broadcasts. Okay. So anyway, going back to this whole thing. Trump is trying to isolate Russia, okay? It's under the guise of trying to end the conflict in the Ukraine. But what's really happening is that Trump is surrounded by all of these war hawks that consistently want more war wherever they go, whether it's in the Ukraine or otherwise. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to isolate Russia even further than what they've already been isolated through further sanctions and all the rest. It's not going to work. There's going to be a point in time where Putin just lets the Ukraine just be utterly decimated. And for what it's worth, the West should be thankful that they have Putin as an opponent, or NATO should be thankful that they have Putin as an opponent, because I can probably promise you that there are many other people in the Kremlin that do not have such measured appetites as Putin. They would probably have ended this long ago, but it's Putin that is putting people on the chain, holding back, taking measured approaches. Then you also have this. With the toppling of Venezuela and the United States suddenly getting in there, right? You have this problem where it is creating a power vacuum and also a power realignment, specifically for Cuba, because Cuba is little Narco Rubio's not Achilles heel, but thorn in his side. Little Narco Rubio has wet dreams every night about Cuba falling. And the problem is this, is that Cuba is a lot more interesting than anyone would care to imagine. I'm going to go back to a 2010 article where they found an undersea temple complex off of the northwest coast of Cuba, and it bears a striking resemblance to Mayan temples, and it also is off of the coast of San Antonio. Now, the Dark Journalist brings this up all the time, references Ernest Hemingway and so on. Then you've got, who else you got? You got Castro over there, and he's doing all sorts of things that upsets the CIA and so on and so forth. So what are you really looking at here? There's something else going on. We don't quite understand what it could be, but I have my hunches. I do believe that Cuba is sitting on either submerged ruins of Atlantis or possible Atlantean ruins within its jungles. And so this is why it's such a hotbed, especially if you go along the lines of what I've been saying for a decade, and that is that most of these wars that we see are actually about ancient technologies trying to be recovered. So the problem that you're facing is that you've got the Russians, you got the Chinese, you had the Venezuelans, and so on. They probably understood this concept behind closed doors, which is why they always came out in support of Cuba. And the United States wants that. Just like they probably have something underneath the ground beyond raw materials like oil and rare earth metals in Venezuela, they understand that Cuba has something there. There was an Aleutian IL-76 from Russia that landed in Cuba. Now, why is this important? This is a massive military cargo plane. It is absolutely enormous. So what exactly are the Russians shipping off to the Cubans? I would have my suspicions that it would be something along the lines of drone technology, jamming technology, anti-aircraft technology, something along that, especially since Donald Trump has said that Cuba is probably next to fall in dominating the Western Hemisphere. So this is the Monroe Doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine 2.0, and it is probably going to play out over the next year or so. And the other issue that the United States is potentially going to endure is the same thing that what rumors were said to be happened over in Iran and the Middle East. As you know, the United States has decided to put so much military hardware just off the coast of Iran, and everybody was up in arms, and we are ready to go. We're ready to attack Iran, bomb it back into the Stone Age, and make a surgical strike, just like they did in Venezuela. Take all of the imams out, take all of the leaders out, install a cover revolution stooge, and then lo and behold, we will finally have peace in the Middle East. My goodness, what a time to be alive. But then something happened. Something odd happened. The U.S. aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln has retreated from Yemen. It has gone away from Yemen. Now, why would that happen? It is currently, as I read this article, about 1,400 kilometers or 870 miles from the port of Chabahar in southern Iran, and it is now operating near the Gulf of Aden, close to Yemen. Now, the Pentagon has not confirmed something like this, but this is a story that you have to probably parse, and you have to read between the lines. The first is a rumor, and the rumor is that the Chinese and the Russians. Now, this is not the rumor yet. The Chinese and the Russians, they have said that we are going to help Iran. They didn't ask for it the first time in 2025, but this time we are going to assist. Okay, fine. The rumor is that the Chinese have decided to put some kind of 6G, not 5G, 6G style technology into Iran that effectively blocks American electronic warfare. And it also puts the F-35 on the radar. Interesting, because I thought this is supposed to be the creme de la creme of aircrafts, undetectable to anybody. But apparently, according to this rumor, the Iranians, using Chinese technology, have detected the F-35s. So that's something. So we see this little news story. We hear this rumor. Iran suddenly puts uranium enrichment on the negotiating table. Now, this runs counter to the stories that we've heard 2 weeks ago, where it says that Iran has, through back channel diplomatic, not sources, but pathways, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, has said, yes, we've got nuclear weapons. And if you dare try to strike us, we'll use them. So something has shifted in all of this, because now Iran is putting this whole thing of uranium enrichment out there. They're saying, yes, we'll talk. Now, the odd thing about this is the withdrawal of this aircraft carrier, because this means a couple of things. Either one, the rumors are true, and the United States does not want to risk unnecessary loss of life. Or the United States and its aircraft carrier did what it had to do. It got the people that it wanted to get, either captured or killed, and now its job is done. And nobody wants to admit it. So that allows it doesn't allow, but it forces the Iranians to come to the negotiating table. That makes sense to me, too. But they don't want to make public with what exactly the United States did. So they need to save some kind of face politically without overthrowing the country. So something else is going on here, and you're looking at a massive realignment of geopolitical uh, influence here. I mean, I think honestly, you're seeing China dominate one area. Israel's probably going to dominate the Middle East, and Russia is going to dominate Central Asia. India is going to dominate certain areas. The United States basically has free reign over the Western Hemisphere until about Argentina. So something is really going on here, and look out for that, because we can't assume that everything in the United States is a-okay, because the United States is just susceptible to these color revolutions as any other European country or any other country on the planet. And we are in the midst of some kind of color revolution here in the United States, because we see time and again, um, all of this nonsense with Antifa and Minnesota, what we saw with upstate New York. And let me ask you another question. Is there any kind of accountability? Once again, the Trump administration has promised transparency. Have they ever promised accountability? The answer is a resounding effing no. You want to know the information? Sure, we'll give it to you. But are we going to do anything about it? The answer is no, it's not. Nothing is going to happen thanks to Pam Blondie and Keystone Cash Patel, who is utterly incompetent. That bug-eyed little weirdo, he's got to either pull up his bootstraps and do something, or get out of the GD effing way. Everyone is sick and tired of you. You put on a good show during the election cycle last time. You got the position that you wanted, but you're not doing anything. And then you've got Dan Oingo Boingo Bongino. He said, you have no idea what you're talking about. The influencers out there, they're not doing anything except creating more discord. They have no idea what happens behind closed doors. I mean, shut up. Shut up. Another loser that said, oh, there's no Epstein file. But then again, the 3 million Epstein documents come out. All right, so you don't want to call it an Epstein file. Then what the F do you call it, Mr. Bongino? And furthermore, if we're going down that road, where are the Maxwell files? Everyone is so focused on Jeffrey Epstein. Where are the Maxwell files? Because I can promise you there are Maxwell files, and I can promise you they're probably more damning than anything the Epstein files will tell us. Because she is the madam. She's the one trafficking people. Right? How many times have we heard this? Crazily enough, X, as much as I hate X, I utterly detest X and what Elon Musk has allowed X to become, is under massive investigations in the EU, including France. Macaroni said that France says anti-Semitism, oh yes, on X was one of the reasons authorities decided to raid Elon Musk's X office in Paris. Yes, it must be anti-Semitism. I made the argument that anti-Semitism is the excuse to limit free speech. And that's exactly what you're seeing here in the United States. The powers that be do not care what religion you are. They don't care if you're Catholic or Judaism or Islamic. It doesn't matter to them. What they care about is the fact that you're able to tell other people things on social media that run counter to the narrative. And so in this case, they're going to use this disgusting, abhorrent excuse of anti-Semitism to start clamping down on your freedom of speech. And that's exactly what Epstein, it's exactly what Macron is doing. Now, what did we find in the Epstein files? We find that back in 2016 and 2018, who is contacting Mr. Epstein but none other than, oh, dare I say it, according to Mario Nawfal, one of the chosen influencers. After Macron became president, emails show him allegedly asking Epstein for help with PR and how to run things. And Macron is essentially asking Epstein what to do. This is an email to Burge Brenda from Jeffrey Epstein. We believe that we need to rethink, rebuild, reinvent governance and format of international institutions, commitments, and relationships between public and private stakeholders and socioeconomic instruments to better address the challenges. Which socioeconomic innovations would you support to promote more progressist futures? So let's get something straight, because the timing of all of this is very serendipitous. You have the Epstein files released. You have them going bananas on X, and everybody is talking about the Epstein files, right? Are the odds that Macron is placed into the Epstein files, and then within days of the Epstein files being released, X is now investigated for anti-Semitism? It is a very convenient excuse to go after freedom of speech, don't you think? We also find out that, oddly enough, Mr. Epstein was involved in the transgender movement. We also know that, as I brought up on my other podcasts, other shows, that Mr. Epstein and his ilk are genetic supremacists. And they were going around trying to validate who should and should not attend certain meetings, be in certain societies, and so on, based upon 23andMe results of how much, I guess, Ashkenazi or Judaic blood was in somebody. Now, I didn't even know you could have Judaic blood in you, because as far as I know, Judaism is a religion. So, like, how could you determine whether or not your thought process is a certain genetic makeup? It's just as much as saying, well, somebody is 98% genetically Catholic. Like, how could you come up with this? So something is going on. These people in Jeffrey Epstein's circles, whether it's Bill Clinton, whether it is, countless others, Macron, whatever it is, Bill Gates, they do believe in some kind of genetic superiority. And they believe that most of us are, as Hillary Clinton eloquently placed it, deplorable. They detest us. They hate the fact that they have to inherit the earth with people like us. So Jeffrey Epstein, involved with all kinds of bizarre medical things, including possibly one of the grandfathers of the transgender movement, Robert Trivers, is in this. I believe he is from Harvard. But we can confirm this, can't we, Robert Trivers? So we will in a second. He's talking about transgenderism. It's very simple, he says. I compare male to female with female to male. With greater molecular control over development, we are increasingly capable of producing novel phenotypes, more feminine men, by blocking testosterone receptors or castration, and at the same time increasing estrogen production. The one box male features, the second encourages female features. More masculine women, heavy testosterone dosage, incredible external effects, heavily bearded men. You would never guess they had a female bone in their body. First kind, male to female, is 4 times more frequent than female to male. The first is attractive. He is a woman with a C word. So that if your fantasy is to suck a C, otherwise, you are completely heterosexual. It would be much nicer if the rest of the organism is female. Then you get the best of both worlds. So many transsexual women are very attractive and easily make money, which in turn they assert promotes their prostitution since they have to pay hefty fees for injections every week. But they are sexually happy. Once you have reached manhood, even castration does not prevent the sensation of an orgasm. And then he goes on about how female to male is far less convenient and it's not as much. And by the way, he continues, we are now pushing the intervention earlier. So you notice your 3-year-old has trans tendencies. So you now intervene with hormones. I would be frightened to do that, he says, but who knows? Do you understand the mindset of the hyper elites that now rule over us? We are playthings to them. I almost sent this to someone that I know that is trans. I haven't spoken to this person in a very long time. So the a reintroduction after a number of years with something like this would probably be quite shocking. And it would probably mentally break them down. But think about this for a second. This person, Robert Trivers, it seems as though that he has a fetish of some kind. And he wants to make his fetish more socially acceptable. It's very vulgar, this email. It almost sounds as though he doesn't have any pants on when he's writing it to Jeffrey Epstein. And he even says, well, it's fine with male to female stuff because what happens is that they usually go into prostitutions to pay for the procedures that we are going to push on them from the age of 3. This knowing that the Jeffrey Epstein circles are genetic supremacists. This is a genetic war. They're trying to dilute the stock of human beings unless you're a Bill Gates, you're a Bill Clinton, you're a Jeffrey Epstein, a Ghislaine Maxwell, whatever. If your social credit score is high enough, you get a free pass. Otherwise, you're going to be in the lurch. You're not going to be allowed to reproduce. I've made this argument as well. The argument being that the state, they're going to try to push this. The state is going to be the custodian of society. They're going to be the caretakers. And they're going to determine whether or not someone can or cannot have a child and whether or not this child will have blue eyes, brown hair, be male, be female, be able to reproduce. Do you understand? They truly mean to control reproduction out of everyone. Everyone. Then there was this Epstein release. He had custom-made plates made. It's a plate. Shows Jeffrey Epstein on it. In the center of it, like a photo. And he is very... it's so disturbing. I'm almost hesitant to even describe it. It appears as though he is making a jocular gesture of being ready to bite a female buttocks. However, the female seems to be many years his junior. Knowing Mr. Epstein's reputation, we can fill in the blanks, can't we? And then there's this Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra. Oh, before I go anywhere with the transgender stuff. So this whole Epstein thing gets revealed about the transgender thing. What do you think happens? Not unlike what we saw in France. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons has now recommended against gender transition surgery for youths, becoming the first major medical association to do so, according to the Washington Compost. Now, what are the odds that we see a Jeffrey Epstein release, Jeffrey Epstein involved in some kind of transgender promotion or push, and then the American Society of Plastic Surgeons suddenly say, oh, we're not involved in this anymore. We're changing our paths. Very serendipitous, don't you think? This is all the fallout that we're talking about here. And there's more to come, because you can't release this kind of thing without some kind of immediate repercussions, and it's all going to be scattered. And unless you make the dot connections, you'll never understand why these organizations and elites are doing what they're doing. Deepak Chopra is involved, or at least forwarded, Jeffrey Epstein a funding proposal from Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell back in 2017. Now, you may have heard of Miss Powell. She's behind the telepathy tapes and investigation into psychic abilities present in autistic children. Mr. Chopra's email let me know bare minimum for funding an initial study, including a collaboration with Professor Ramachandran on pursuing Templeton Foundation. So Mr. Epstein, involved in researching psychic abilities. Now that's odd, don't you think? Why would he be involved with Stranger Things style research? Well, I'll tell you why. There's a correspondence going back to 2018. Gino Yu, Ginyu, with Mr. Epstein. They're talking about something, and they refer to individuals, models, as quote unquote stage 3. The email states, outlier who is intelligent was trans or traumatized when she was young through sexual abuse, and now gradually coming into her own and becoming self-realized, can share our text interactions with her permissions, he says, starting to develop special abilities. During our trip, we found a lot of stories like this, though she is more on the extreme side. Have been working with many such individuals with the model with good success. What are they talking about? What are they talking about? From Gino Yu to Jeffrey Epstein. He also wrote, I just shared with you a message that I got from someone that I am mentoring based upon the stages model. Her message popped up as I was about to write to you. The caravan trip has been really wonderful in meeting people that are quote unquote stage 3. These are people who are developing a different perspective of reality and discovering the gifts that they have. Also, in rallying others who have a strong interest in this area. Among the new projects emerging include a base to use science-based approaches and Eastern practices to help sort these quote-unquote stage 3 people out. I understand that you are not happy with the results of the Cuba conference that you funded, but I feel that the work is very important towards helping people identify and recognize the gifts that they have, which may not be accepted or well understood by society today. This is why your support is important. My intention for sending you this is to show that it is relevant work and that people are benefiting. People that may not normally otherwise fit are leaning to accept themselves and the abilities beyond what society would consider normal, quote unquote. New models are also possible, such as the alternative paradigms group are finding their way, new forms of knowing without knowing how one knows. What are they talking about? If I had to guess, they're talking about ritualistic sexual abuse. They're talking about trauma victims. They're talking about gang stalking. They're talking about MKUltra. They're talking about the concept that these individuals have some kind of special psychic ability. And we've read plenty of documents through MKUltra or things like Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien, if you believe that, that genuinely, when you create all of these altars through evil, nefarious ways to create these different types of personalities for intelligence work or blackmail material, you're dealing with the occult and all this, that they genuinely or generally have some kind of psychic ability, whatever that may be. You're talking about Stranger Things, the TV show. So is Jeffrey Epstein involved in something like this? It certainly appears so, with whatever stage 3 represents, whatever stage 3 individuals are all about. It also implies that many individuals in the modeling industry or elsewhere are being monitored if throughout their life. Because how would they know whatever quote unquote stage 3 is all about unless they have been guided in a certain direction from birth? Nothing else really makes sense to old Chris Michaels. So there's more to come on all of this, because I don't think we've seen the total amount of fallout. The most striking is that X is being sought after in the EU for anti-Semitism, when really it relates to Macron and the unredacted versions, or as much as unredacted as possible, on X, because the mainstream media just doesn't want to talk about it. And the other fallout is the surgeons saying no more transgender operations. And finally, the way that they're going to try to slant this whole argument is going to be this: it's all Russia. You've already seen articles from the New York Compost say that, well, it was Russian hookers that Jeffrey Epstein was involved with. This is why you see what you saw with the Bill Gates email and him getting an STD and spreading it to his wife and trying to secretly administer antibiotics to his wife so that she doesn't find out that he has an STD. Clearly, this is another Russian plot to topple American society. And then you also have them saying, well, Jeffrey Epstein was a financial advisor to Putin. So there's your other Russian tie. Nobody wants to talk about anything related to Jeffrey Epstein and the emails going back and forth between people like Ehud Barak and other individuals like Noam Chomsky, sending them DNA tests, right? Finding out their genetic makeup because they have to be of a certain background. Nobody wants to talk about that. This is all clearly a Russian plot, and Jeffrey Epstein was one of Russia's agents supplying Russian hookers. Do not let the mainstream do this to us, or you. Do not fall for this kind of story. Jeffrey Epstein was not working for Russia. He may have been. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeffrey Epstein was a quintuple agent working for countless other countries and governments and intelligence agencies. But the main one wasn't Russia. Please stop this kind of nonsense. Nobody believes this stuff. But that's the angle that the mainstream is going to go down. And it's up to people like me and you to sit there and say, absolutely not. No way. And one final tidbit, Steve Bannon is a greaseball. If you still pay attention to him on Bannon's War Room, please stop. The amount of fawning text messages between Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein is utterly nauseating. Steve Bannon couldn't compliment Jeffrey Epstein enough. Every other text message was, oh, you're so brilliant. You're so smart. How did you get this way, Mr. Epstein? Oh, my goodness. That's an excellent strategy. I'm so glad that you and I are working together. Mr. Bannon even references how Donald Trump knew that Bannon and Epstein were in contact with one another and strategizing what kind of political policies were being made or recommended. And Bannon was laughing that Donald Trump knew about their relationship and he couldn't do anything about it because Bannon was riding high on public support. So please stop paying attention to Steve Bannon. He's no good. He's just as much of a loser as Bill Gates is. And that greaseball really needs to take an effing shower. Have you ever looked at this guy? Looks like he just rolled out of bed, hasn't put shampoo through his hair in 3 weeks. I mean, the guy looks like he just, rubbed a cheeseburger through his head and then shows up to work. He's a slob. So that's my advice to you. All right. It's Chris Michaels Show. As always, I'll be back tomorrow. If you like me, you can find me on Spotify with difficulty, by the way. I'm banned everywhere. The Chris Michaels Show. I'm on Rumble. I'm on Odyssey. I'm on YouTube. I'm also on X, which I utterly detest because you'll never, ever see anything that I post. But if you do want to follow me, see Michaels Show over on X. And you can feel free to chime in. But I'm most active on Spotify, and you can always comment. I will always reply or at least interact with you, dear listener. Anyway, that's it for Chris Michaels.